The setting of a piece often controls the thoughts and actions of its characters, and Shakespeare's Julius Caesar is no exception. Rome, being the setting of the tragedy of Julius Caesar, is vital to the movement of the plot. The landscape of Rome and its political scene both provide influence to the story and motives of the characters. These motives caused Romans to go as far as to either kill others or themselves. Most all of the Roman leaders held great patriotism for their nation and acted accordingly. The interests of Rome drive the actions of Brutus, Caesar, and the conspirators. In their own eye, they are acting in the best interest of the citizens of Rome. Brutus is an excellent example of this, stating, "I did send to you for certain sums of gold, which you denied me, for I can raise no money by vile means." He boasted his endless integrity and honesty, triumphing a supposedly cold and corrupt Cassius. The mention of Rome is a justification for any action that would otherwise be deemed traitorous or evil. The leaders of the empire managed to get away with whatever they wanted as long as they were able to justify it. The love of Rome contorted the minds of the conspirators with an obsessive nationalism. This started a frenzy of plots, stabbings, tension, and untrust. These happenings especially increased after the killing of Caesar, as the people of Rome were split into the opinion on the vindication of the execution. Brutus and Mark Antony fight to gain control of the public's allegiance, and both deliver moving speeches that attempt to sway the crowd and control the masses of Rome. This fight for Rome's approval is recurring throughout the piece. Brutus and Cassius keep their reputations in mind on the battlefield against Octavius and Antony. Because of the tense political scene during the time that the play is set, everyone must tread lightly, lest they face the possibly fatal judgment of their peers. Cassius, desperately nervous of being seen as a coward, kills himself after his friend Titinius is killed or captured. He says to Pindarus, "Oh, coward that I am, to live so long, to see my best friend taken before my face." The love and fear of Rome would cause people to go as far as to kill themselves. This motivation is prevalent throughout the story and exhibits itself several times. All conspirators, save only he, did that they did in the envy of great Caesar. He only in a general honest thought and common good to all made of them. Here, Antony pays his respects to the recently deceased Brutus. He points out the great virtues of him, including his purity, transparency, and honesty. Most of all, it represents Brutus's love for Rome. He literally lived and died for Rome, keeping its best interests in mind until his demise. While other conspirators may have murdered Caesar because they were jealous of his power over Rome, Brutus was honestly trying to make the best out of what he was given. His intentions were pure. This symbolizes the power Rome has over its people. Everyone was crazed by the power that Rome offered and wanted to take advantage of it. Their motives were swayed by the power and interests of Rome. Many give their lives for it and pay greatly for the higher being that is their country.
March 15th. This was a critical day in the life of the Roman leader Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar claimed the rule of Rome after the beloved ruler Pompey. People were not happy with the fact that Caesar was ruling Rome because they were scared of what he would do to the country. A certain group of men, Cassius, Casca, Cinna, Metellus, Trebonius, Ligarius, Decius, and eventually Brutus, became a group of conspirators against Caesar and his rule. They strategically meet to plan out the murder of Caesar. They even question whether or not they should kill Caesar's left-hand man, Antony. They decide that Antony will not know what to do with himself when Caesar is dead, so it is all right to leave him alone. However, later on in the play we learn that this was a mistake. This is because Antony eventually convinces the people that the conspirators must be killed. Antony does this in his speech that is given during Caesar's funeral. Murder. This was the end goal of the conspirators and occurred on March 15th, the Ides of March. The conspirators meet with Caesar in the Capitol on this day. Caesar goes, although it is against Calpurnia's wish. As the conspirators begin to arrive, Cassius is afraid their plan may be ruined. This is because Popilius said, "I wish your enterprise today may thrive." This causes Cassius to believe more people than just Popilius are aware of the plan to kill Caesar. As Caesar arrives, they begin the discussion. Right away, Caesar tells the men that he does not enjoy the fact that the men are being courteous and trying to sway Caesar away from doing what is right. This really sets the tone for the solemn and mysterious act. Once it is Brutus's turn, he asks Caesar to let Publius Cimber back as a Roman citizen. Caesar then repeats himself by saying, "But I am constant as the northern star." He uses this line to show how firm his beliefs are, even with Brutus's begging. The other men then begin to kneel, and Caesar loses it with them. He starts to get angry because of how they are acting. Then suddenly Casca says, "Speak, hands for me," and stabs Caesar. After he stabs Caesar, the other conspirators also stab Caesar as well. Caesar lays under the conspirators and weakly says, "Et tu, Brute?" Then falls Caesar. I believe that this is a critical moment in the Ides of March, for it is what caused the actual death of Caesar. Casca's words are what caused the conspirators' idea to quickly become a reality. This line, however, does show an even deeper meaning. Before Casca, the other conspirators all spoke to Caesar and were begging and kneeling to him. This caused Caesar to become angry, for he did not want this. He believed that he was determined and he could not be swayed by courtesies such as this. Casca as well seems to become angry with this behavior. Instead of showing courtesy to Caesar and begging him for something, he wants to let his hands show his feelings towards Caesar. Therefore, his hands, being used to stab Caesar, show that he was with the conspirators and believed that Caesar would destroy Rome if he were the ruler.
The sword is an essential symbol in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar for many reasons. The sword is what killed Caesar. This is one of the most important events in the play. Caesar's death shows how Cassius and Brutus were willing to turn against their friend in order to have the best for their country. Throughout the play, we learn that this is Brutus's tragic flaw. He is willing to put Rome before himself or anyone else, even if it leads to his death later on in the play. The sword is also the source of many of the deaths of several different characters in the play. First, Cassius dies by being stabbed by Pindarus upon request. Soon after, Titinius dies from stabbing himself in the heart with the same sword that Cassius used to kill himself and that was used to kill Caesar. Later on in the play, during Act 5, Brutus is killed by the same sword. He is killed by running onto the sword, which then stabs him in the stomach. Brutus told Strato to hold the sword for him while he ran onto it. When the Pompeians go to war against the Caesarians, it leads to the deaths of these two important characters. Cassius wants to die after Pindarus tells him what he had seen going on in the war. He had seen Titinius being surrounded by horsemen. Cassius did not want to be defeated by the Caesarians, so he would have rather died. He also would not want to have to see his friend Titinius die. After Cassius is stabbed by Pindarus, Titinius finds out about the death and decides to stab himself. When Brutus comes into the scene, he sees that Cassius and Brutus were both dead. He did not want to be defeated by the Caesarians either. He explained that the ghost of Caesar had visited him twice. He is sure that because he saw Caesar's ghost, that the time of his death had come. He then wants Voluminus to hold his sword for him as he runs on it. Voluminus does not think that he should do that. Brutus then tells Strato to hold it for him, which he does. As Strato holds the sword, Brutus runs onto it, which impales him and also kills him. Hold then my sword, and turn away thy face while I do run upon it. This quote explains to us that Brutus wants to die because of the deaths of Cassius and Titinius. He doesn't want to lose the war against the Caesarians, and he cannot win without his best men in his army. This leads him to make the decision to die. He would rather die than lose the war. He tells Strato to hold his sword while he runs upon it. It stabs him in the stomach as he runs, and it kills him. This shows his true character and his tragic flaw. He would put Rome before himself, which leads to his death. He knows that without his men to fight in the war, they will lose. Since he knows he is going to lose, he decides that he wants to die so that he does not have to let his country down.
The several omens throughout the plot of Julius Caesar are essential to keep the storyline moving, as well as to prepare the reader for the bloody assassination of Caesar himself. As these omens could have led the characters to prevent tragedy, multiple characters' inability to follow them leads to the outcome of the story of Julius Caesar as we know it. Within the first couple pages of the play, a soothsayer tells Caesar to beware the Ides of March, but Caesar tells the soothsayer to go away, assuming the warning is ridiculous and has no use following. This more obvious omen has a direct correlation to the day Caesar will be killed, on March 15th at the Capitol. Later in Act 1, as it is thundering outside, a sign that God is mad, Casca tells Cassius about strange thing he has seen outside that day, including a slave whose hand is on fire but not burnt, a lion grazing near the Capitol, men on fire casually walking around, and an owl outside during the day. The combination of these strange sights, partnered with Casca's stereotypical superstitious Roman mindset, leads him to believe that God is truly furious that Caesar is in power. As we transition into Act 2, Scene 2, Calpurnia openly tells Caesar that she never believes in omens, but since her dream the night before included so many bad omens, including a lioness that whelped in the streets and graves that yawned and yielded up their dead, she thinks Caesar should stay home and not go to the Capitol. Even though Calpurnia instructs Caesar to stay home, Caesar later tells Decius Brutus that he wants to go to the Capitol, and ultimately ends up sending men to the Capitol to sense whether he is in immediate danger or not. When word comes back that Caesar may be crowned that day, he decides to go to the Capitol after all, despite the several bad omens that should have led him to do otherwise. After failing to heed the signs implied by the omens in the first half of the play, Caesar faces death at the Capitol building. Even though the implementation of omens plays a vital role in the rising action before Caesar is killed, the bad omens continue to haunt the conspirators after they have killed their leader. Late in Act 4, while at Philippi, the ghost of Caesar comes to visit Brutus. Brutus is tired in his tent, so he thinks he is imagining things, but when the ghost of Caesar speaks, he knows he is not dreaming. Although the ghost says few words, this omen of a visit from the dead sets the mood for the rest of the play. The line, "To tell thee thou shalt see me at Philippi," is a direct foreshadowing of Brutus's future negative fate. The only way for him to see Caesar again is if he is dead, so the reader is now aware that Brutus is bound to die in battle. It is almost as if Brutus's upcoming death is revenge from God for making a poor decision and killing his best friend. Finally, in Act 5, some of the omens that Casca originally witnessed in Act 1 return for Cassius to witness at Philippi. 2 mighty eagles fell, and in their steeds do ravens, crows, and kites fly over our heads and look downwards at us. The downgrade of an eagle to a raven may suggest that Cassius is bound to lose the fight at Philippi, and this is later proven when Pandarus stabs him. Overall, it is clear to see that the bad omens throughout the tragedy of Julius Caesar are essential to foreshadow each character's own individual negative fate, which is the epitome of this play. Indeed, it is a strangely deposed time, but men may construe things after their fashion, clean from the purpose of the things themselves. As Casca tells Cicero about all the strange omens he witnessed while in the streets of Rome in Act 1, like men on fire, a lion out of captivity, and an owl outside during the day, Cicero responds with these few lines regarding how realistic the meaning behind these omens could really be. In a play that takes place in Rome, this line inevitably stands out because of the stereotypical belief that all Romans believed in omens. But Cicero proves his intelligence here by disagreeing with the common assumption. He is telling Casca that there is no need to worry about these supposed signs from God, and that he was just stressed out about the current government situation. That was the reason he was thinking so much of the little things he witnessed. Throughout Julius Caesar, rhetoric plays a crucial role. The entire plot of the book develops around rhetoric, and it is what turned the plot around. Up until the aftermath of Caesar's death, the conspirators believed they have the population of Rome on their side. But when Antony, Caesar's literal right-hand man, uses rhetoric in his speech to convince the people that the conspirators are corrupt men, the play takes an 180-degree twist. Through the use of logos, ethos, and pathos, a plan that was once in favor of the conspirators has flipped and is now in favor of the loyal Caesarians. Perhaps one of the most prominent aspects of Antony's speech is pathos, which he uses to connect the feelings of the emotionally torn Romans. He says, "But I am here to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him?" This quote connects to the crowd on an emotional level as he asks the people not to feel bad about mourning for their beloved leader. Antony wanted to convince the people that the conspirators were completely unreasonable in their killing of Caesar, and that the commoners themselves should be free to mourn the death of Caesar without thinking they were betraying the beliefs of the conspirators, because, in fact, the conspirators were wrong all along. He then brings logic into his speech, telling the people, "Here is the will, and under Caesar's seal, to every Roman citizen he gives, to every several man, 75 drachmas. He hopes the citizens of Rome will see that Caesar was a great leader, justified by the fact that in his will it officially states that he would give 75 drachmas to each citizen of Rome once he had died. If the people weren't convinced before, this fact would undoubtedly convince them, because in the minds of the Romans, a sum of money from a leader immediately gave the leader a generous, beneficial association. To bring everything together, Antony also uses ethos by saying, "You all did see that on the Lupercal, I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. This shows the people Antony's power, for he presented the crown to the ruler of Rome, Caesar." By using a variety of rhetoric such as logos, pathos, and ethos, Antony connects with the people and makes them see his point of view. On the contrary, Brutus brings a large amount of logos and ethos to the table. He was able to sway the Roman public using logic, describing the explicit reasons upon which the decision to kill Caesar was made. The straightforwardness of his speech gave the Roman people something to grasp. They were calmed down. Brutus's facts and intellectual logic helped the Romans understand his point and step down from the enraged state they were in prior to his speech. Also, Brutus's high point of authority gave the people a sense of trust in his opinions and ideas. The ethos surrounding his argument helped it very much. Overall, the use of rhetoric was quite frequent in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. It was used to persuade the public on matters at hand, so one would be on the right side. This influence was incredibly powerful, a strong reason why it was used so much. The speeches, dialogue, and addresses of all the characters in the story show rhetoric. For Brutus is an honorable man, so they are all honorable men. Throughout his speech, Antony repeats the word honorable. By doing this, Antony is using more types of rhetoric, repetition, and sarcasm. He begins to use it in a sarcastic way because he overuses the word. This gives a negative effect to his view on Brutus and the other conspirators. This sarcasm also allows Antony to bring the citizens on his side, or against the conspirators. Shakespeare also adds in this sarcasm to show the reader another type of rhetoric. Not only can people be swayed by using the usual logos, pathos, and ethos, but even a larger variety of rhetoric, such as repetition and sarcasm.